is celebrating the small stuff, and taking the time to kind of build connections. But in addition, I asked Phil if he would jump on, and he's going to take part in the second part of this discussion later. Sorry, I have a fly in front of me. That we're going to talk a little bit about pre-planning and using that as part of your communication toolkit for internal communication stuff. So we'll get on our high horse about that in a little bit, because as you know, my heart still lies in communication sometimes. I try to pull it out of there so Phil has enough room, but it drifts back in occasionally. I know, right? So I want to talk about something that we've hit on before with celebrations, and with making sure to mark milestones, but also finding ways to celebrate the small stuff in people's lives, or what might sound the mundane or the everyday. How many of you guys, were super excited when, you did something like put in your first garden or put in a garden, but didn't know that you had anyone maybe at work or at school or whatever that would appreciate just how hard that was, just how exciting that was to you. I think that sometimes having folks in your life, especially folks who have committed to being part of your core friend group, or at least your inner circle through Grange, who can help you celebrate the things that are meaningful to you, is a really important piece of our fraternal network that we don't focus on enough. And I know almost everybody here pretty well, actually, which is kind of cool. And the few of you that I don't, I feel like at some point we're going to get to know each other pretty well. And I'll say that I know that almost all of you are really good listeners, and pick out when someone's excited about something. You have that social IQ that's important and necessary to building this type of relationship. So this isn't so much, I think, for you as it is for you to potentially model this for other people in your Grange. And that was one piece of the puzzle that's tonight's work. So oftentimes, Phil and I get to talk to the choir. We're going to see you several times this month on the Zoom stuff for the April Grange Month. Just litany of things we're tossing at you through Facebook Live and YouTube and all of those places and Zooms. And you probably know when you log on to these who you're going to see, what friends you'll be visiting with this month. So when we do these, oftentimes I feel like we question, are we doing any real service here? Because you all are already dedicated, and this may not be getting us anywhere. There's two reasons for that. One, a lot of times the things that we end up talking about are things that you don't need help with. You already know how to be passionate. You already know how, to lead with courage. You already know how to be good listeners, and all of those things that we tend to do these workshops on for the people that you're sitting there and going, yep, she's talking about Jody. Jody's terrible at doing X, Y, or Z, not your Jody. Don't worry, Rob. I wouldn't talk about him like that, but
I know you wouldn't.
But you think about a person that you're like, man, I wish they were here to hear this. But we're not so much doing them for you. What we're running into, I think, a lot is that we need help having you guys help model some of the behaviors that we're asking for, and making a point to call attention to that. So oftentimes you're already doing these things, whether it's going out of your way to say, hey, Rebecca, that's so awesome that you put a garden in. Like, what are you trying out new this year? Is there any technique that you can give me, tips that you can give me? Hey, take a picture when the first seedling comes up. It would be really cool to see what comes up first. She will know you've invested in something that was important to her. But moving on from that, saying, hey, so-and-so, did you hear about Rebecca's garden? She gets really excited about this every year. It would be so cool to have her bring in the first plant or the first vegetable or the first whatever that she gets, and we could make a potluck theme around it or something like that. So taking the time to model some of the things that are the good behaviors that you guys already do, I think is a really significant part of what we are hoping, I think, to see with you guys who are our thought leaders, our opinion leaders, truly the folks who are already, heads and tails above the class, right? So do you guys have any ideas of how other folks in this group might model some behaviors and call attention to those that could work? Some personal examples that you'd like to share?
Example, I'm giving on another group with the Odd Fellows that I'm with. I'm giving a lecture next week on Tuesday about another different group that I'm with, which is Rotary. And some of you that might know, it's called the famous four-way test. And I don't know how many people have known the four-way test or not, but the four-way test was developed into a way of thinking and coming across different situations that you come in, and it's mainly to do with professions. So if you haven't heard of it, this is the four-way test. You can see it. Is it backwards?
Is it the truth? Is it fair or to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be better for all concerned? Boy, Phil, thanks. Right at the end. All of a sudden, I had to have my readers.
Better late than never.
I like that.
So basically, it goes on. It says the development of acquaintances as an opportunity for service, the high ethical standards in business and in profession, the recognition of worthiness of all useful occupations, and the defining of each Rotarian's or anybody's occupation as an opportunity to serve society. The application of an idea of service in each personal, business, and community life. The advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace throughout the world, fellowship and business, profession persons united in the idea of service. The number one thing you can ever do to gain wealth, and not just monetary wealth, is to become valuable to the people around you. So you can do this in the Grange, you can do it in anything. If you're valuable, if you're giving something of value, it could be advice, it could be knowledge, it could be an open ear that listens to somebody's difficulties. That is where you're bringing value. The only way people are going to get into these organizations is if you are providing value to them.
That's a good point.
So that's what I want to share.
And the only way they stay is when they see that they have value as well, which I think
two-way street
part. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else want to give an example, personal example of how you might serve, not just to be an example, but to show people how they can do better in a certain area? No leading by example here. I don't believe that. I think you all are being a little modest. Either that or you're just waiting for the next stage of this. I don't know.
So I was going to say my favorite way of leading by example is to encourage people to step out and know that they have a backing and a support system. Being a member of several Granges, I think we often hear people who have ideas and they don't know where to go with them. So it's important for them to know that you, as an established officer or as an established leader or mentor, are have their back, and let them take that chance. And I see things like this happening at Jonesboro, where they took chances on revitalizing that Grange and bringing it back and saying, we don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to try it. And I've seen some incredibly awesome things coming out of their Grange, for example. And it's just knowing that they have then the support of their leaders. Now they have the support of their community, that they're able to take more chances, and so encourage your members to take that chance, even if they're not 100% sure of how it's going to work out in the end.
Nice.
I think too often as people, we want to know what the end result will be and to ensure that there won't be failure and that we're going to succeed. So until you reach that point, you're not willing to take the chance, but you're not going to know that it's successful until you try it.
We can hear from one more person. It's going to be like a roulette here to see what I call on if somebody doesn't decide to jump in.
I'll speak up, Amanda.
All right, Rebecca.
I would say, following up the last point, is kind of confidence. Trying something, out of your comfort zone can be scary, taking on a new role, and just knowing that you have a friend in the Grange, someone that's been there before, or someone that says, I haven't tried this either. Let's do it together and let's see how this works out. It can be all it takes sometimes.
I agree. One of the things that I think, when they ask you in your interviews or whatever, what's a strength, what's a weakness, the one thing that I've said for a long time, I think one of my strengths is networking. I really like being able to say, I know now that, Rebecca's taking Chinese, my brother is a Chinese linguist, I'm going to put them in contact. Earlier this week, same brother is getting stationed in Illinois. As soon as my mom said he's going to Illinois to Scott Air Force Base, I went, seriously? Because our National Grange Executive Committee chairwoman lives backing up to Scott Air Force
Oh,
Base.
really? Is that where she lives, down there?
Yeah. And he had said, wherever we get stationed, if you have a Grange member who could help maybe talk to us about the lay of the land, give us some suggestions for like towns that are good for young families, et cetera, et cetera. And some of the places that were on the list, like Georgia, I was like, oh, I'm probably not going to have a Grange member. I'm going to have to find somebody else from, my laundry list of people. But networking is such an important piece of what we can do. And I think sometimes knowing your strengths and being able to figure out where they fit the best with your Grange experience. And then again, teaching people how to do something like that. So you don't need to have the network I have. You have your own network, and you're finding ways to really connect your web. And there is no social safety net better than the web of people who can serve as advisors, as mentors, as friends, as just general contacts for each other. It's a better social network than you will find almost anywhere else. And I think Granges can do that really well. So, I'm excited to bring that piece. And I know that you guys all have something like that you're bringing in. But telling people, hey, you should connect X and Y is a way that I can then say, this isn't something that I'm the only one who has to do all the time. This is something that you can do. And model the behavior and then point out where they can do just that in order to become their own special version of, pieces of the puzzle and of leaders within their Grange. So I'm hoping as you guys are taking away from all of these things this month and moving forward, as we do a variety of, these type of events, that you're figuring out how, not just to strengthen your own skills, but also to pass that information along in some way. So that kind of leads to the second part of tonight, which is where I asked Phil to be here with us. As you know, I was comm director for a number of years, and I'm very happy to pass that hat right off to Phil. And one of the reasons that I was interested in moving positions that I guess I never really said last 2 years ago, when I did that, was there is a certain level of burnout that comes with any job, but one that was really, really taking a very personal toll from that specific position. I think I've tried to talk to Phil a lot about it as not just warning, but also as, maybe you can find a better way around this, when we are shouting into a void. So as communications director for National Grange, part of the job obviously is promoting the Grange out to the world, out to those people out there who've never heard of Grange and who need to hear about it. They need to hear about what our position is on something, where we're going to have our convention, those type of things. But a majority of our job tends to be creating tools and services, and then providing a lot of information to our members about Grange itself, or partnerships that we're doing, creating whatever. From really early on, a lot of people tried to tell me something I couldn't hear or didn't hear for a lot of years, which was no matter how pretty the thing is, no matter how many times you put it in front of people, there are still going to be people in this organization who never know a thing. 7 years in, there are people who still don't know we have a National Grange magazine. 10 years in, there are people who still don't know that their Grange can have a free website.
Got mine in the mail.
Right. There are people who swear to our committee that is studying convention that they are members for many years, not just like a brand new member, but members for many years who had no idea that we have a national convention, or that national convention is something they can come to. I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of hard to miss.
Yeah.
If you've paid any attention to anything that's been put out, that you are invited to almost everything that we do, right?
Amanda, I appreciate everything you've done. I appreciate everything that Phil is doing, and the two of you together. But I mean, and I know it's got to be frustrating as all get out for what you guys are dealing with. But some people just want to live in a hole. And if you don't know that there's a National Grange Convention, where have you been? Because I mean, you can only help people that want to help themselves. And I mean, that may not be a good way to look at it, but really, I mean, there's just nowadays to not know there's not Facebook, website, National Grange Convention. You aren't even trying to be a part of anything at that point.
Right. All right. Well, and I know that at least the 2 state presidents that are sitting here, 3 state presidents, the former state president that's sitting here.
So who's going to raise their hand that they're former or their presidents? So you can all see.
Yeah. So John is New Jersey, Rob is Connecticut, Eileen is Idaho, current, and then former is Jean in Iowa.
Okay.
And Betsy in Pennsylvania, since she's joined us now.
There she is.
Communications or newsletter editor, newspaper editor, and communications director from Oregon, Susie. So the thing that I think I wanted to have Phil come on and talk about was how we can make sure to be doing better inter Grange communication. And again, I think that we're unfortunately sometimes preaching to the choir. I know a lot of you guys are passing information on, but having some type of brainstorming and discussion about where we are and what we can do better to make all of these things more robust and make sure that nobody can say, I didn't know. Because I do actually have to say that now, stepping into enough local Granges, that I've been a member of or part of at this point, it is easy to forget to tell people things if they're new. It's easy to forget to say to them, hey, we have a national convention or we have a national magazine, because there's almost an assumption that they should just know. But there's not like a ball that we stick in their head and all of a sudden they have all this knowledge. And unless somebody printed out the last 10 years worth of newsletters or whatever from National Grange and said, read these before you come to the next meeting, I don't know how they would know some of this stuff if we're not sharing it. So I wanted to ask Phil to talk a little bit tonight about better intra-Grange communication and ideas that he might have. So
it's interesting that you just mentioned printing off the information. A couple weeks ago, so last month I presented my fish presentation. I was invited to a Grange local to me to come do it for them. And so I was there for their whole meeting, for their dinner, and was sitting next to their lecturer, who I'm getting to know. It was a Grange I've never been to before. And she actually had printed the past 2 weeks of patrons' chains with her, which was really neat to me to see, oh, the information's going somewhere. But understanding that I live in a more rural part of Pennsylvania, that broadband's not great around here, and many of the members at that meeting are of a certain age and probably aren't connected to the internet the way that clearly most of us who are on this Zoom are. So I actually went back and found an article that I wrote pretty new into my tenure as comm director.
Oh, when he was shiny and unjaded.
I wouldn't say that I was unjaded, because the article was entitled, "Where Does the Information Go? Be the Connector." We are the choir. And one thing about being the choir when you're in a church is that the choir is there to inspire and to lead. They're the song leaders. They are the ones that get to see things in advance. They know what's happening in the service. And then they also provide, special music, and they're able to reach out and inspire the people who are in the church to do more and to go beyond. And I think that's what our job here as a state Grange leader, as a local Grange leader, is to help funnel the information. We get this sneak peek at the magazine. We get to see the patrons chain coming into our inbox every month, and understanding that I think it's part of our job to take the information that we see and ensure that other people get that. And it's hard. I think that we sometimes are in a position that we feel oversaturated, that we're getting so much information. I know for me, as a member of 2 subordinate Granges and 2 Pomona Granges, and being state junior director and national comm director, that I have so much information coming to me that even for me, sometimes I forget what people do and do not know because I'm there. I would rather be told 37 times as a reminder to register for national convention rather than never being told at all. And I don't know that I have brilliant ideas tonight. I want to know what, in the communities that you work in, what are the best ways that you reach out to people beyond your Grange Hall? That's an honest question. Anybody can shout.
Or even in your Grange Hall.
Or in your Grange, yeah.
I think the most important thing is an ability and a willingness to just talk to people. Too many people that I know in our Grange here in Connecticut are afraid to talk to people they don't even know about what they're doing. And you've got to get past the fear of public presentation and just be willing to talk to people. I mean, years ago in one of our membership campaigns, we had the idea that you would talk to people and tell them in a kind of a heartfelt way what the Grange did for you in your own life, why you joined, what you get out of it, what your Grange is doing, and just present some kind of a personal, not so much an elevator speech, although it might have elements of such, but something that came from your heart, that was of your experience, that maybe somebody else could relate to you on that level, and you would touch something in their being that was perhaps looking for something to relate to. And maybe some of what you said would have meaning to them, and that would be an attractant for them to join you in your endeavors in your Grange.
And Rob, I would encourage members to do that among their Grange members as well. I know several Granges that their members don't know each other well. So to encourage that intrapersonal communication as well, of let's talk to one another and share our stories of how our Granges have been impacted, or our lives have been impacted because of the Grange. And I think to share the stories lets people know that, my impact, or the way that the Grange has impacted me, is different than the way that the Grange has impacted somebody else. So why are we here, and what do we get out of being a member? And then listening to one another's stories and being able to build on those, and knowing, okay, well, this is what you're getting and this is what I'm getting. So now we know potentially how to take our story beyond. And so I think that's a really great lesson. So one thing I want to point out is that when I saw the person who printed their patron's chain, they printed the email as it was, which takes up a lot of ink because it comes on a dark background. So I do want to point out very quickly that at the top of every patron's chain email is a link that says click here to download, and it opens as a PDF that's just on white paper and is laid out and is really easy to print. So I would encourage you that if you're going to share in hard copy format, to take that PDF and print that off. Much simpler than printing out an entire email, and it prints off in a better format too.
One thing I know that Phil and I have talked a lot about is how to provide you guys as state leaders or as thought leaders in your areas with material that you can reprint in your state Grange newsletter, or with material that you can, the one or two impact pieces that you might be able to print. This for the state leaders in the room, or even the folks who are just in touch with the state leaders. Heidi, I know you've got, the ears of the folks that matter in New York, for example, to consider adapting or responding to this piece. If you want to write something of your own, Phil asked a year ago this, and we still know that there are members who don't know this. What are you doing in your Granges? Or just take this article as it is and reprint it. Because from one level to another, to the direct source of people, we have a missing link. I asked Phil the other day about our open rate. First of all, we reported last year about 51,000 fraternal members. We know obviously some of them are not connected to email at all. We know that, some of them are maybe their parents don't want them even at 14 to have an email address. There's a lot of reasons why somebody might not have one, but that's probably at this point a very small minority of folks that have no connection to the internet. And then we have, a number of folks who, this in one or two of your Grange's state leaders, or even for you guys who are in one local Grange, that there's someone who they're connected, but they're not really engaged or involved. They're not looking to get the emails from us. So they might be clicking through and deleting it right away, or they may never have provided their email address to receive the contact information. But out of our 51,000 members, Phil, about how many email addresses do we have?
I'm trying to find that email again from Stephanie that she sent me that. We have about 9,800 email addresses.
Ooh.
And of that 9,800, there's probably at least 800 that are non-members. And by this, I mean, they're not like e-members or people who are thinking about becoming Grangers. They're contacts in different organizations that we do affiliate with for some reason, whether it's because we have similar policies, we advocate on some of the same things. We, previous staff members that just want to know what's going on with Grange, but aren't actual members anymore. People on the Hill, things like that. So really about 9,000 emails. And then I don't know about you, but there's a number of folks that I know who get at least 2, maybe 3 of these emails from different accounts. Like you might have your personal account, Tricia, but you also manage the Studley Grange email account.
Right.
Nobody else is checking the Studley Grange email account. You wanted to make sure we had it, and we certainly appreciate that we have both ways, because one day, hopefully, you're not the only one checking the Studley Grange email account.
Yep.
But right now, you're getting it twice. I'm getting it 7 or 8 times. I don't
get one. I don't get one to the Grange account.
Okay.
I get 3.
Yeah, but there are people who do. So we know realistically, we're also not hitting people in that, 9,000. And of course, then we're also hitting people like married couple that they share an email address. And so we're getting 2 or 3 people there.
Yes, there's people that do that.
I couldn't. I mean, I love my husband, but we have
my husband doesn't like the way I manage mine, so he would kill me. So no.
We have one shared that the bills come to, like that. Yeah. But there are certainly ways that we can point out where we have a problem getting direct to consumer. And I think one of the things that has happened over the course of time, as technology has become so much more a part of our lives, and an everyday facet that everybody can feel in touch, or at least these communications methods, is that I think oftentimes some of us forget that people who aren't doing this, or they're not connected to these direct messages. And so we've said, oh, I'm sure they already heard about that. Realistically, we're telling you they probably haven't. Probably, you know, at this point, 10% of our membership is actually connected, or a little bit more than that, 12% or so is actually connected to us by email. That those emails aren't bouncing. You had 9,800 emails and 2,000 bounces.
Yeah, I had, so I found one, so it was 9,800 sent, 2,100 bounced, which meant that they went to email addresses that don't work or are closed or something like that. And then only 2,800 were actually opened. So they're getting into people's inboxes, but not, people aren't engaging with it still. So how, so that was, I'm actually made sure to pull one that was far enough back when she sent me this data that it was several weeks before. So people still had 3 weeks to open the email and at any point or interact with it. So we had a 36% open rate, which, you know,
That's not that bad.
It's not terrible for the number that we're sending, as far as, you know, communication statistics go. But if that's 2,800 out of 51,000 members that are accessing and engaging with our emails, which is a drop in the bucket. You know, that's less than 10% of our members. That's less than 5%.
Yeah. And I think we would celebrate if we knew that that meant there was 2 people from every one of the active Granges in the country. We have about 1,450 active Granges in the country. So if we said that that was like 2 people from every Grange reading it, I think we'd be okay with that. But it's not. We know it's not. In fact, there are states where we have very, 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 very few emails at all from the entire state. And so to know that folks there are just not getting any of the information is very, very hard. And I guess this is where I say it kind of was just personally very grueling. And I think Phil's feeling a lot of that as well. So how do we do better? And there's been a lot of discussion, I think, about this. Do we ask you guys to forward those same emails? So maybe some of the people are stacking it up twice. Do we ask you to reprint things in different methods? Do we provide more on social media than we already do, which would be kind of hard, but let's pretend? Do you want us to start gathering text messages and we text things out to people? Would it be better for us to do a daily email blast instead of, I didn't say you want to do that. I mean, these suggestions have all come about. We've heard like people say, oh, well, I get an email every single day from such and such website. And I'm like, well, because you bought something from there and they have an automated system that's just trying to sell you things. Like there's no human person there creating a message for you every day. You know, it's an automated software that we don't have the luxury of having, given what type of materials we're providing you. Do you want it once a month instead? Would that be easier? You know, how best do you think that your members would receive information and pass it on to the people who are showing up at the meetings and the people who aren't?
And I will say I'm very thankful for the people who do automatically share everything. Jean, I don't think there's been a single post that's been on the National Grange page in the last year and a half that you haven't shared, which is awesome and I appreciate. So, and I like it's members like all of you that are on that make me want to keep putting these things out because I know that you are engaging. But how do I reach, you know, the member who is a dues paying member who maybe shows up once or twice a year to a meeting or an event, but clearly there's still something about the Grange that they want to stay involved with, and what's the hook? What are we missing in that next step for them?
the other question, I guess, that we've gotten a lot, Phil, is, well, don't we just take care of all those folks then who don't want to receive emails or who aren't on our email list by providing, like, by the magazine? And your statistics for the number of subscribers for the magazine
Or even lower.
were no better than mine. So we've had what, 2,100 or so subscribe over the course of time.
And we're at about 800 right now, active subscribers.
Are receiving it, but not always renewing either. Right. So if we have 800 subscribers for the magazine and we have 7,700 emails that aren't bouncing, let's just pretend they were all members and they were all opening their stuff. That's still 8,500 people or so, 8,600 people or so. I can do math. 8,500.
So last year I was told, people didn't know that we had so many contests at the National Grange, different things that you from a local Grange level can, directly apply for and take part in. So I have to unblur my background to show this. So in this new issue, there's actually a tear out section that's double wide about our contest. So I highlighted a couple in every department. So there's page 1, and then there's page 2, which is juniors and youth. And then there's page 3, which is my favorite. I'm going to spotlight myself for anybody who doesn't have yourself on speaker mode. That's just a double wide of all of the deadlines. Wow. And every National Grange contest that you can participate in and that your Granges can be a part of. And it's everything from the Distinguished Grange Program and Legacy Families all the way through the Youth Officer t-shirt design is in there. These different things that you, like for the Youth Officer t-shirt design, you don't have to be a youth officer. You don't have to be a youth to enter. Like, it's open to all Grange members. And that's something that I want to continue getting the information out about. And eventually I will share this directly on our social media as well. But as subscribers, you get the early peek, you get the look, and you get the early access and action as well, which is a perk of being a subscriber, is that I don't put all of the information that's in Good Day out to our general membership, because there's a reason that we want people to subscribe. And it is kind of nice that you guys have an extra inside peek to these things. And if there's something that you want to see in Good Day, let me know. If there's something that your members say, well, we haven't heard enough about XYZ or this program, or what are we doing for veterans or something like that, talk to me and I can see what I can do to get more of that information out from National Grange into the local Granges.
So for Phil and Amanda, besides being the membership chair for the state of Michigan, I'm the secretary for my local Grange, for Studley Grange. So I have members that are 70s, 80s that don't have email or anything else like that. So should my responsibility as the secretary be to print out like the some of the stuff that comes out that I get as an email to them? I get the Grange, the Good Day magazine, so that I can share that with Grange members if any of them want to read and things like that. So, I mean, how much of it falls back to the Grange secretaries to try to get this information out to your local people?
You're asking a heck of a good question, because Bill and I both serve as secretaries, so we know your pain.
Bill moved on me.
Yeah, we feel it.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. I tried to blur my background and I disappeared.
And yeah, I mean, how much money are you going to spend to print everything out? How much time are you going to do?
Well, to me, yeah, it's the timing of it. How much time do I want to spend, even if I print one copy out to give it to everybody in the media and say, hey, do you guys want to pass this around at snack time and look at it or anything else like that?
Right.
I love the fact that you guys work hard, you work your butts off to put all this information together. I just wish there was a better way. There was not a better way, a way that I could get even some of my members more engaged to want to read these things.
And that's, I don't ever want to put additional strain on any single officer or on any single person. I think it has to be the job of anybody who's getting this, or not a job, it should be the pleasure to share this information.
Right.
I know. So I don't want to put it back on the secretary and say, because you get this, you have to share this. I want, average Joe Schmo, the member who's getting the email, to start sharing or to talk about the information as well. And maybe it's something that your greeter, your gatekeeper can do, that they said, every meeting that there's been a new patrons chain, or share an interesting article or a fact or something that's come out, and kind of add that to their responsibility, or an officer that doesn't seem to have a lot of responsibility. Say, how can we connect our members more to even state Grange news? It's not all about national Grange. I know members here in Pennsylvania who say they don't have a connection to the state Grange,
Right.
despite the fact that we have weekly emails or monthly mailings or that kind of thing. So how can we keep those connections rolling as well, and find out where the missing links are, and how can we be better communicators in general?
Yeah, I love the fact that you guys a lot of things come out email. It saves the money, even like at our state Grange, Michigan State Grange. That's our Grange news comes out. Those that want it, mail can get it. Otherwise, it comes out email. And same thing with things from the National Grange. Save the money of all the printing that's required. But on the other hand, and I'm not saying to go back to this, but are we missing a group of people because we don't mail out things?
If we had their addresses, maybe we could.
Yeah, but do we want to go back? You're almost taking steps back. Is it going to be worth to go back to do that? I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, and I guess what we're asking is, if you have suggestions or think that things could improve, that's great.
Yeah,
I know. This has been a personal thing, because I know on the side that I was sitting, where I was in Phil's seat, I wanted to bang my head against the wall daily. I know when I'm sitting in my secretary's seat twice a month, not once, already with meetings pushing 2 hours with the potluck.
dang.
There's no way we could add telling more information. So
Right.
I already know I've got a small window of time that I'm doing the best synopsis I can, but leaving a whole lot on the table. And am I making sure to say, you all are welcome to sign up for convention? Here's what convention is. Because the other part that a lot of times we're hearing now is, okay, we talk in jargon, and we do. I mean, hey, sign up for convention, go to 7th degree. Pretend for a second you don't have any idea what those things are in context of Grange. If I continue to speak like that at every meeting, you're feeling further and further from being accepted and understanding what you've become a part of. So, the idea that we talked about earlier of making sure to connect with people, celebrate their small stuff, become their trusted person, become someone that they enjoy interacting with, and then having the conversations that they're probably willing to have, where they're saying, you mentioned this convention thing. Can you tell me what that is? Because, Rob, you pointed out a perfect thing. There's a lot of people who are afraid to talk to other people. And if you think it's bad now, wait a few years until we have a lot more folks younger than Phil and I in Grange who haven't really had to communicate face to face, especially with adults or people older than them, in the same way that most of us did at some point. They really get anxious. This isn't just a desire not to speak to someone. This is a true social impediment to have conversations, especially vulnerable ones.
Like a phobia, really.
Yeah. So we have to find ways to make sure that the conversations are being had about what's important to know that's going on in Grange world, but also kind of mitigate this information overload that Phil mentioned. It absolutely can be overwhelming to see all the things that Grange is, even to read the patrons chain 3 times a month. I can't keep all of that stuff in my head. I don't know what some of it is. I'm anxious because I don't know what some of it is. And then I miss these deadlines and, miss opportunities and what have you. But if, for example, John knows me well. And he's like, hey, Amanda, I saw there's a quilt contest. I know you sew, I know you quilt. Don't forget about that. That's coming up. I know somebody cares about me. I know somebody's paid attention. And now I can say, hey, John, does this go to the state or does it go to national? Well, do they show these things off at national session? And John can start talking to me about what national session looks like. And that session is also the same word we use for convention, and really break down some of those barriers in that jargon. So what we started out with, I kind of wanted to wrap with by saying that I don't know that we're ever going to do a ton better on not overloading people. I do think we have leaps and bounds to go to find ways to connect to the people that are already in the Grange that haven't provided any way for us to connect and contact them. But I think the place that we do the best on any of this is in this interpersonal level. And while I would love to know that when Phil push send, 51,000 people are getting and opening the email, if I can at least rely on the fact that John is letting, his sister Betty and me know that there's a quilt block contest, and then learns a little more about me and says, hey, did you also know they do public speaking contests in Pennsylvania? I bet you'd have fun with that. I will start engaging more. And by engaging more, hopefully I'm also consuming more of the information myself without having to make John my intermediary. So I guess when Phil said you guys are a choir and choirs have very specific roles in churches, you guys have a very specific role in our Granges. And I'm hoping that you'll also take this opportunity to find the other people who you can encourage to be those mentors and connectors in your Granges across your state, so that we have more folks in this choir, who they are, you can point them out, to be very specific and deliberate about what information they're continuously providing to people, new members and old.
I mean, Eileen just posted in the chat, how do we get them to read it? And it's a good question. And it's something that we might not be able to answer. And I think that it goes back to asking our members why they joined, and what was the spark, what was the catalyst that got them in as members, and what would they like to see? And maybe that's the question we need to be asking more in our local Granges, our state Granges, or at the national Granges. What would people like to see more of, and to get that feedback from them?
Hey, I had a suggestion. This is not something that's uncommon. This is quite common in a lot of organizations. And how we get around it, and this is speaking generally in a lot of fraternal organizations, anything you want to have read or received by the membership, you mark on the communication that must be distributed, not read. It must be distributed at the next meeting. And different organizations that we go through, we have district deputies, and we have they're not overseers, but the form of an overseer that comes around, and they make sure when they go and attend a meeting that all necessary communications are being read or communicated or distributed at the meeting. So it might just be a couple of pages of something, but you say the secretary or the master, or whoever that designated person would be in the Grange, would say, we have a communication that's necessary to be distributed to the membership. And if you would like to read it, I'll leave a copy here for you, so it's available to them. And if there's anything that's more important that's coming up, you can always mark on there and saying that this is required to be communicated. But that also goes a two-way street. The communications have to be short enough so you're not dragging out a meeting for 3 and 4 hours. So the communication can be, hey, there's a quilt block contest. Please see information for this. That way they know about it. If they're interested in it, they can do it. If not, they're pretty much, they were told, but at least they know what's going on. So it's just to, break out Robert's rules, see how it's done, and get back to the way the Grange meetings were supposed to be run traditionally.
I like that idea, Joe, but I do know of Granges in Michigan that the secretary does not read the communication that is sent to her that she's supposed to send, that she's supposed to read.
Oh,
Oh,
Me, I mean,
that's well, you just that's something that we have to work on.
right.
You know?
Right.
So I mean, you can only do so much, but if somebody is overwhelmed or is unable to pursue the job, I'm a firm believer that jobs should be allocated to people who are able to
Oh,
do
yeah.
them, not
I
just
agree.
because somebody else left the position and oh well, I'm to take over. Everybody has strengths.
Yep.
And as a Grange and as an organization, we have to see the strengths of the people that we have and capitalize on that. So if there's somebody that's tired or not able to do it, and you're recognizing, it's not going to happen maybe next meeting or next month, but start getting a plan into place to try to seek out people. And especially when you have new members, the first thing I remember when I became a member of a different organization, we'll call it Brand X, they needed a secretary bad. And as soon as I went through the degrees, I was the secretary. And everybody said, well, why did they make Joe the secretary? They said, because Joe was very good at that. And we could see that he could fill that role. So I didn't know much about it, but I was good at organizing things and getting things done. And that's what they needed. So they went out and like a job application, they were seeking somebody that needed to have a job done. So, I mean, if you go in the book and the rule book, and you see what each one of the duties of each office is for, that's very important, because without these, you're not going to have a strong organization, and you're going to have people that are going to be leaving the meeting dissatisfied.
That's a good point. And goes back to the point of making sure that our elections are not just rote and not just she's done it for 700 years, I'm sure she'll do it for longer. Making sure to engage folks with their strengths, all those type of things that we've talked about. Hopefully people are doing those. Mm-hmm. So it's 9:35 and I'm happy to hang around if you have any specific discussions, but otherwise I'm gonna finish my paper pieced camel tonight, get the last little finishing touches on my proposal for a membership fellows program that I hope to be talking to you guys about next month. We'll see if Potomac Grange bites, and see where the night takes me. So I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. We didn't hit you too hard with anything that was overwhelming, and that we'll have fun again next May, whatever date it was supposed to be. I was supposed to pull this up earlier. I got distracted on my phone. May 9th.
May 9th, yes.
There we go. And hopefully you bring a friend. So.
And before we go, it is still Grange Month ongoing. So next week is Grange Spirit Week, and it's also a week chock full of special events. So I'm just going to give a quick rundown. I hope to see you on a couple of them. On Sunday night is our Standing Youth Yammerings event. So that's for any youth member or youth director. You're all welcome to tune in, or anybody who just is interested in youth programming. That's with Samantha Wilkins. And then at 8:30 for the rest of the week, although, oops, I just realized one of them says 9 o'clock, so I need to fix that before I send out the PC. So on the 17th, Amanda's leading a forum on ritual and the present day. On the 19th, National Grange Vice President Chris Hamp is presenting a program called Serving with Passion. On the 20th, I'm leading a little seminar called The Beginner's Mindset, which is actually my editorial in Good Day is also based on this quarter. And then finally, next Friday night, the 21st, is Pete Pomper's Community Service Forum, where he's highlighting 3 Granges across the country who are doing some great things and encouraging our members to keep doing them. And then the way that Grange Spirit Week works, if you haven't seen it on social media before, there are 7 days of themed kind of celebrations that I encourage you to participate in either virtually or in real life. And so that's Grange Friendship Day is one of them, Raised Right Here Day, Grange Apparel or Pin Day, Grange Hero Day, Grange Project Day, Community Service Day, and my favorite, Grange Recipe Day. That I hope to see you all participating in and sharing your members. It's a great way to share the Grange story without feeling overwhelming. It's very personal. Who do you consider a Grange friend? Who do you consider a Grange hero? What's your favorite Grange recipe? And so I look forward to seeing how you all participate.
And hopefully you do, and you share that stuff, and we have lots of participation way outside just our choir. So awesome. Thank you, Phil, for coming on tonight, and thank you guys for joining us. And thanks for putting together a fun Grange Month schedule. I appreciate it. Yeah. If there's something next year that you want to see for Grange Month, let me know, because I'll start working on it on May 1st. All right, guys, have a wonderful night. Thanks for visiting, chatting, and we'll see you next month. Well,